all right, maybe I've been married, maybe I've married a couple times, maybe I've just dated. What have I been attracting that doesn't work that's very similar or familiar to high school behaviors and patterns?
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for tuning into Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life. Hey, Silka.
Hello, Paige. Paige, today you raised a topic that I'm interested to see how this segment comes out. It's about starting over again, dating, etc., and not making the same mistakes. Now, the spin today, and you brought this out, and I thought this is so interesting, is do you feel like you're back in high school as you're starting over and meeting new people? And, incidentally, when we first started this channel, that was like one of the big things. Oh my God, we're back. Me and my girlfriends, we were sitting around talking that we feel like we're back in high school.
Yeah.
And now that we look into this a little bit more, there are scholarly articles written on this. We don't realize how important the experience in our adolescence, especially the high school years, is that we carry with us throughout our whole life. So talk to me about that. This was your idea. Why is it important to understand?
I love how you throw this over to me. It's a big umbrella. Yeah. So if you're just starting over again and dating again, one, it does feel like high school. Oh my gosh, how do I meet somebody? Where do I meet somebody? Do I get introduced? How do I feel about a blind date? Okay, we had a date. When do I get back to them? 3 days, 4 days? What's the right thing? They said this. What does that mean about me? There's all these things because it takes us right back to high school. It takes us back to our insecurities. It takes us back to how do we do this dating thing now that I'm older and I'm supposed to have more wisdom. But the thing is, so many people after 50, yes, we've been through so much, but how many of you can honestly say you've been through so much, but you've taken a break from dating for a little bit to find out what your patterns are, what your themes are, what you've attracted, what you'd like to shift and change, what you want to keep that works for you? That's number one, to help yourself to not go back to high school, right?
Right.
Number two, if you're not going to pay attention to those themes, those patterns, those things that are ingrained in us, because there will be still some, and that's okay. If you're not going to pay attention to it, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get a 15-year-old and a 55-year-old. That's what you're going to get. So you have to decide, what do you want? Do you want a 15-year-old and a 55 or 65-year-old? So you have to really sit back and decide, all right, maybe I've been married, maybe I've married a couple times, maybe I've just dated. What are the flags that I need to pay attention to? What have I been attracting that doesn't work that's very similar or familiar to high school behaviors and patterns? Because we all do it. The key is you got to catch yourself and you have to want to shift and change it. And then the person who you attract, do they want to shift and change it? All right, so I'll just take a pause there, Silka, because there's so much we could talk about with this.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the things that came up right away is like you said, what the triggers that are associated with the high school years. And we had talked about doing another segment on jealousy, but I think that's what came up to for me is that some what seems to be very juvenile things to be like jealous about or insecure, they come back the way you were treated.
Absolutely. And think about why even more now. Gravity takes a hold, hair changes, we've been through a lot, health issues, so much so that after 50, we are a little bit more concerned about, gosh, how do I look now? How do I speak now? What clothes do I wear? Which is all outer. That's why I always focus on the inner. Because if you're focusing on the inner, that's where you can do the real work. And that's hopefully where you'll attract someone else. But you're absolutely right. We're more conscious of who we are after 50 because look where society puts our generations. Oh, they're down, they're too old, they're not smart enough. Oh, everything's sagging and dropping, all these other things. And that gets ingrained in our society too is, oh, you're 50, you're over 50. Well, you know how that goes. So it's going to take you right back to high school because there's insecurities all the way around.
Yeah. I've never, so closely linked that a lot of the issues we're experiencing, and we joked about it, like you said, oh, I feel like I'm back in high school. That's because we are mentally. You're
Yeah.
back. You take, and I think there were some other. There's actually a lot of, like, think I might have said it's scholarly
Yeah.
articles written on this, and one of them is that when you do start over, we haven't dated in 20, 30 years. When you start, you're back there.
You are. You are. You're back with all the things of, oh my gosh, what do I do? Who am I? How do I look? Oh my gosh, is my hair? The whole thing starts over again. Plus, you don't know what you've been coming out of. Like, was it a really abusive relationship? Was it emotionally, like overwhelming? Did the person put you down? How many traumas have you had? Have you looked at your own stuff? There's all these layers. And I have to add something because I have seen this in the past 10 years. The active over 55 communities that are all over the place where you can go and meet people your own age, let me tell you, those communities have the highest place of going back to high school. There's cliques, there's groups, there's who slept with who. Oh, I was getting up to get the paper and I saw you walking out of your house and getting in your car and going so and so. It's amazing that when I first started to see all of this because of where I live and clients that I have, I'm like, oh my God, this is high school all over again in a bubble of 55 and over with exact same issues that we're talking about. There you go.
So now that we know that, what do we do? How is knowing that help us,
Do something with
do
it.
something about it?
It's the same thing that parents kind of tell their kids. Think about it. They build their kids' confidence up. They have them look within themselves with the value that they have and not listening to what others are saying. It's the same thing whether you're 14, 15, 55, 65, except by now, I'm hoping you're starting to deal with your shit. And you've been looking at yourself and stepping in and going, you know what? It's not about my outer layer. It's about the soul inside of me, what I bring to someone, and what I want someone to bring to me on a much more soulfully connected, much more intimate relationship that you want, right? It's very similar.
Yeah. It's interesting how, we age, we have learned a lot. We've
Yeah.
acquired a lot of wisdom. We've been successful or not to certain degrees. I think the emotional maturity is something completely different.
Oh, that's a whole other thing we can have about emotional IQ with women and men and how it shows up. And stay tuned because we're going to do another one on that show. But yeah, there is emotional IQ. And you brought up something really important, Silka. When you've been through so much, sometimes that emotional IQ gets hampered down because you feel so beaten up.
Mhm.
And sometimes you've never evolved. You're still attracting, like I said, a 15-year-old in a 55 or 65-year-old man or woman because they haven't dealt with their emotional IQ to bring it up to match your age.
Right, right. Well, I'm trying to. We're coming to the end of the segment, and I'm wondering, what something profound really to leave our viewers with. I think one is just the recognizing that you're normal if you feel this way.
Yeah.
That you're yes, you are stuck in high school for good reasons because your brain kind of works that way.
Mhm.
Uh, let me throw it over to you.
Yes,
What do
like,
you think is
dude,
a
yeah, let me give you something profound. That's what you're looking for, Silver, right? Throw it over to me. Okay, so bottom line is this, and I always go back to this. You have to be fully aware of your own patterns, of your own behaviors. Do they match what you did when you were 15 and now you're 55 or 65? If so, decide which ones work at your adult age and which ones you need to shift and change. And awareness is the key, but that's only the first step. People stay in awareness the longest time. Well, I was aware of this. Well, I was aware of that. Good for you. What are you going to do about it? So go past awareness and start to shift into stop at the outer stuff all the time. Go within, make some shifts and changes of what you want for yourself, and then what you want to attract out there for yourself as well. There you go.
That's a good word. But what do you want to attract, and what do you, yeah, what do you put out there? Thank you,
Mhm.
Paige. I'll link to some more information on this. I thought it was fascinating. I never, like I said, I never put the two together. That you are, yeah, high school. Some people never leave those years either. It
Yeah.
was an interesting, that time is an interesting and important time in our lives.
Yeah.
So thank you, and we will see you next time on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second active life.
Bye.
Bye.
If you have an idea for a topic that you'd like to have us cover, please visit our website, secondact.tv. We have a little red suggestion box in the upper right-hand corner of our site. Just click on that, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.